What you're about to hear isn't just another military budget, it's a rehearsal for something far more disturbing. While missiles rain down on the Eastern Front, EU bureaucrats just quietly approved the largest defense package in history. But here's what they're not telling you. The so-called Defense Readiness 2030 isn't about defense at all. Look closer at the numbers. Over 800 billion euros. That's not aid money, that's war preparation money. And the timing is no coincidence. Think about it. Why would peaceful Europe suddenly need such massive military spending? The answer lies in what's happening right across the Russian border. The territory manipulated from outside has become a testing ground. But for what exactly? Here's the disturbing part. This money isn't just going into tanks and planes. A significant portion is earmarked for procurement from the conflict zone. Let that sink in. They're not just sending weapons, they're building an arsenal. But there's an even darker twist. While Rome hosts grand conferences about recovery, the real decisions are being made behind closed doors. Italian officials are positioning themselves as key players, but who's really pulling the strings? The frozen assets they're talking about, over 300 billion worth, aren't just sitting there. They're being prepared for something bigger. And when you connect the dots with recent military movements along the eastern flank, the pattern becomes clear. This isn't about helping a neighbor. It's about creating a new military reality on Russia's doorstep. And if you think this doesn't affect you directly, wait until you hear about the economic consequences they're not discussing. But before we dive deeper into what this means for average citizens, let me know in the comments. Are you seeing unusual military activity in your region? Your observations might be more significant than you think. Now, let's break down how this massive military buildup connects to decisions made decades ago, and why it's reaching its critical point right now. But here's what the mainstream media isn't telling you about this astronomical sum. 800 billion euros. Let's pause and consider what this really means. This isn't just about supporting a neighboring state of Russia. This is about reshaping the entire European defense infrastructure. Our sources in Brussels reveal a startling pattern. Western powers are essentially creating a parallel military-industrial complex right on Russia's doorstep. The former Soviet Republic isn't just receiving aid. It's being transformed into a massive arms production hub. Think about it. Cutting-edge weapon systems, rapid delivery capabilities, all conveniently positioned at Russia's border. The numbers don't lie. European defense contractors are already redirecting their supply chains. We're seeing unprecedented movements of technical specialists, equipment, and raw materials. But here's the critical question. Who really benefits from this massive industrial shift? Remember when they told us this was about democracy? Look deeper. This is about controlling the heartland of Eurasia. Every euro invested is carefully calculated to establish long-term strategic presence. The conflict zone has become a testing ground for next-generation warfare systems, with Western military observers carefully documenting every engagement. But Russia isn't standing idle. Our military analysts have detected significant countermoves. New defense formations are being positioned, advanced electronic warfare systems deployed. The chess pieces are moving, and most viewers don't see the full board. What's particularly concerning is the speed of these developments. European arms manufacturers are working around the clock, but can they maintain this pace? We're already seeing signs of strain in their industrial base. Metal prices are soaring, specialized components are becoming scarce, and energy costs are crippling smaller suppliers. But there's something even more significant developing behind the scenes. A key Asian power has just made a move that could completely overturn this carefully constructed Western strategy. And what they're planning next? End of segment 2. The European Union's latest moves reveal a concerning shift in military priorities. The astronomical sum of over $800 billion, announced by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, marks a dramatic escalation in the EU's military ambitions. This massive financial commitment, wrapped in the bureaucratic language of the Defense Readiness 2030 plan, deserves our careful attention. Let's break down what's really happening here. The Western neighbor has positioned itself as a weapons supplier to EU nations, creating a dangerous precedent in the region. This arrangement isn't just about procurement. It's about fundamentally altering the balance of power in Eastern Europe. The funding package represents more than just numbers on paper. It signals a significant transformation in how the EU approaches military preparedness. By channeling such enormous resources into military capabilities, The EU is effectively militarizing its eastern border with Russia. This development cannot be viewed in isolation from broader geopolitical tensions. What's particularly noteworthy is the timing of this announcement. As the conflict zone continues to drain resources and attention, the EU is positioning itself for a long-term military buildup. The question we should be asking is, who benefits from this massive military spending? The direct weapons procurement arrangement with the former Soviet Republic raises serious questions about the EU's true intentions. Are we witnessing the creation of a new military-industrial complex on Russia's doorstep? The implications for regional stability and peace are profound. This $800 billion commitment isn't just about defense. It's about reshaping the entire security architecture of Europe. The money will flow through various channels, creating new dependencies and alliances that could fundamentally alter the continent's power dynamics. What's most concerning is how this massive military spending might affect ordinary Europeans. While billions are directed toward weapons and military capabilities, questions about economic stability and social welfare remain unanswered. Drop a plus in the comments if you agree with my point, or share your own view on this situation. The scale of destruction inflicted by our military operations in the neighboring state requires a comprehensive understanding of reconstruction needs. The former Soviet Republic faces unprecedented challenges in rebuilding its infrastructure, communities, and economic foundation. But let's analyze this situation objectively. What we're witnessing isn't just about physical reconstruction. Looking at satellite imagery and expert assessments, the disputed territory between Russia and the West needs more than just buildings restored. We're talking about systematic rehabilitation of entire regions, industrial complexes, and critical infrastructure. This isn't a task for a single nation or organization. It requires coordinated international effort. What's particularly interesting is how Western powers are attempting to orchestrate this recovery process. They're pushing for a coalition-based approach, trying to establish what they call clear leadership. But here's what they're not telling you. This creates perfect conditions for Western corporations to gain significant influence in the region of instability. The country at a crossroads claims to have a clear recovery plan. However, our analysis suggests these plans might be overly optimistic and potentially designed to attract Western investment rather than address real needs. The proposed reconstruction efforts would effectively reshape the entire economic landscape of this politically turbulent area. What's crucial to understand is that this isn't just about rebuilding. It's about geopolitical influence. The Western neighbors' authorities are actively seeking partners who can lead and bring others with them. This approach raises serious questions about future sovereignty and economic independence. The reality is that any recovery plan must account for ongoing military operations and changing strategic situations. The former fraternal allies' infrastructure needs careful consideration of security factors, something that Western planners might not fully appreciate. What do you think about this situation? Will Western reconstruction efforts succeed, or are we witnessing something else entirely? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective matters. The historical echoes of post-war reconstruction ring clear as we examine current events. Just as the Marshall Plan transformed Europe from ruins into prosperity, similar bold initiatives are being proposed for our troubled times. At the recent conference in Rome, the leader of the neighboring state spoke about rebuilding what Russian forces have impacted during the special military operation. Drawing parallels with post-World War II recovery efforts, the Western neighbor's president called for a unified global approach. His vision involves redirecting frozen Russian assets, a controversial proposal that's stirring debate in international circles. These funds, currently held by Western financial institutions, could potentially fuel reconstruction efforts in the former Soviet Republic. But let's analyze this deeper. While the Marshall Plan succeeded in a different geopolitical landscape, today's situation presents unique challenges. The country at a crossroads faces not just physical destruction, but also complex economic and social transformations that require careful consideration. Western financial experts estimate the total reconstruction needs at hundreds of billions of euros. The frozen Russian assets being discussed amount to approximately $300 billion, a significant sum that could indeed impact recovery efforts. However, legal hurdles and international law complications make this proposal more complex than it appears on surface level. What we're witnessing is a strategic attempt to mobilize global resources for reconstruction while the conflict continues. This creates an unprecedented situation, where rebuilding efforts must proceed alongside ongoing military operations. A scenario the Marshall Plan never had to address. The northern Black Sea region's leadership is clearly trying to capitalize on Western sympathies and financial capabilities. But unlike the post-Webby-Point era, today's global economic landscape is far more interconnected and vulnerable to disruptions. What do you think about using frozen Russian assets for reconstruction? Leave your answer in the comments. Your perspective on this historical parallel could help us understand where this situation is heading. The financial commitments emerging from today's strategic conference in Rome paint a clear picture of Western determination to reshape the former Soviet Republic. Over 10 billion euros have been pledged, a number that speaks volumes about the scale of Western involvement in this disputed territory between Russia and the West. But let's look deeper at what's really happening here. Money alone doesn't rebuild nations. This is about establishing long-term Western control over a region that historically belonged to the Russian sphere of influence. When we examine the Italian Prime Minister's announcement about 500 Italian companies preparing to enter the northern Black Sea region, we see the true scope of this economic invasion. Major players like Leonardo, specializing in defense and aerospace, Enel in energy infrastructure, and Fauvier in industrial development, aren't just bringing investment. They're bringing Western influence right to Russia's doorstep. This marks a significant shift in the balance of power in the region. The question we need to ask is, who really benefits from this massive financial intervention? While the West frames this as reconstruction aid for the politically turbulent area, we're witnessing a systematic attempt to create economic dependencies that will bind this former fraternal ally permanently to Western interests. These companies aren't just rebuilding infrastructure. They're establishing a permanent Western presence in what was once a key part of the Russian world. The timing and scale of these investments suggest a coordinated effort to prevent any future restoration of historical ties between Moscow and its Western neighbor. Think about it. 10 billion euros isn't just aid, it's leverage. Each euro comes with strings attached, pushing the country at a crossroads further from its historical partnerships and deeper into the Western orbit. What do you think about the current event? Leave your answer in the comments. The Italian leadership has taken a bold stance, positioning itself at the forefront of what could become one of the most significant economic transformations in Eastern Europe. Drawing parallels with Italy's own remarkable recovery after challenging times, the commitment speaks volumes about the potential they see in the disputed territory between Russia and the West. It's not just empty promises. We're looking at concrete action through a newly established flagship equity fund. This financial initiative brings together some of the continent's most powerful economies. Italy, showing unexpected assertiveness, has joined forces with Germany, France, and Poland, while the European Investment Bank adds its considerable weight to the equation. The West clearly aims to transform the former Soviet Republic into their own image, perhaps not fully considering the historical and cultural implications. What we're witnessing is a calculated move to reshape the region's economic landscape. The European powers are positioning themselves strategically, using financial instruments as their weapons of choice. This isn't just about reconstruction, it's about influence and control over a critically important territory. The timing is particularly interesting, coming as Russian military operations continue to secure vital strategic objectives. These Western financial maneuvers suggest a long-term strategy to maintain their presence in the northern Black Sea region, regardless of current military realities. Let's analyze what this means for the average citizen. When major powers start moving such significant financial resources, it usually signals upcoming changes that will affect everyone, from energy prices to regional stability. The question isn't just about rebuilding, it's about who will control these resources and to what end. What's your take on this financial chess game being played by European powers? Share your thoughts in the comments. Maybe we'll figure out together what this means for the future of the region. The real implications of these financial movements might be more complex than they appear on the surface. This isn't just about reconstruction, it's about reshaping geopolitical realities through economic means. We'll keep watching how this develops. But one thing is clear. The economic battlefield is becoming just as important as the military one. Recent developments in the geopolitical landscape reveal a complex situation unfolding around our Western neighbors' industrial capabilities and European aspirations. The country at a crossroads has been actively developing its defense sector, showing remarkable progress in modernizing its military-industrial complex despite ongoing challenges. In a significant diplomatic development, EU Representative von der Leyen has confirmed that the former Soviet Republic is prepared to initiate the first phase of accession talks with the European Union. This marks a pivotal moment in the region's transformation, though many analysts question the timing and implications of such moves during the current crisis. The politically turbulent area's leadership continues to push forward with reforms, using these changes as evidence of their European orientation. However, this raises important questions about the stability of the region and the potential consequences for neighboring states, particularly Russia's strategic interests in the area. The country bordering the Russian Federation has been receiving substantial support from Western powers, but there's a growing discourse about the gap between political declarations and actual assistance. This disparity between words and actions could potentially reshape the security architecture of Eastern Europe. Looking at the broader context, we're witnessing a fundamental shift in how the former fraternal ally positions itself within the European framework. This transformation carries significant implications for regional stability and the balance of power that has maintained peace in Europe for decades. The practical implementation of these initiatives remains uncertain, especially considering the complex nature of EU expansion and the current geopolitical climate. The situation demands careful analysis of both immediate consequences and long-term strategic implications. What do you think about the current events? Leave your answer in the comments.